Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Tim Staples, our guest this hour. Next hour, Jim Blackburn. And both hours, open forum. You're welcome to call with any question you've got. 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. And maybe you're off this week. Maybe you got the whole week off. And this is the first time you've ever listened to Catholic Answers Live. So let me tell you how it works. We answer questions about the Catholic faith. And by we, I mean the people that sit next to me. And you can ask any question you want, and you don't have to be Catholic to call. Anybody can call. And if you're like, oh, I've always wanted to ask a Catholic, why they worship Mary or whatever the question is, 888-318-7884 is the number. So if you're Catholic, you can call. And if you're not Catholic, you can call. 888-318-7884. Tim Staples is one of the great Catholic apologists in the world today. As a matter of fact, I know that because he's been in the last few months everywhere in the world. He's been to every single place in the world. Tim, great to have you back.
And man, am I tired.
Yeah, I know. But
it's good to be with you, brother. And can you believe it? It is almost Thanksgiving.
It came up on me kind of fast this year. It snuck up on me.
And now, it's I hate to say it, the Christmas rush, especially when you have 7 kids like I do.
Yeah. Right.
You got to really think about gifts early, man, and now comes the crazy time. But you know what? I just love it. I got to tell y'all that are watching and listening right now, we're getting a head start on our Christmas lights this year.
Oh, okay. So the Staples house will
well, we're not turning on the lights until after Thanksgiving, but it's so much work that we're doing it over several days.
But they've gotten bigger. They can help you out more.
They can. They're doing it right now.
Are they really?
I hope.
Good for them.
Hopefully they're paused now to listen to Dad on the radio, so you better be listening. All right.
For those of you who don't know, the Staples house Christmas is it's one of the things. It's a geographic feature that they use to navigate spaceships by.
They
just see those lights and they,
the Griswolds ain't got nothing on us.
No. And you've never blown your power out, right?
Man. Just fuses.
You're blowing those Christmas fuses, and will you have the Holy Family out front?
Oh, absolutely. We've got the Holy Family out front on the lawn and up on the roof.
Nice.
So we've got 2
You can't put a little baby on the roof?
Yeah, you can.
888-318-7884, the number already. Lots of folks on the line. So
all right.
I'm going to go to those calls. I'm going. I really am. Nate in Dallas, Texas, watching on YouTube. Nate, thanks for the call. Go ahead with your question for Tim.
Hey, gentlemen. Good afternoon. Happy early Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
I was listening back at the previous radio drive back in August, and August 4th, actually. Tim was setting up the show, and he said something, and I've asked about it before a couple times. I just wanted to ask the last time about double effect and abortion.
Oh, yes.
Because what Tim said was that Catholics have a total prohibition, but Protestants and Baptists are pro-death. I have it queued up. It's at the 3-minute, 44-second mark. If you want...
No, you can just ask us the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So it's so I wanted to know, from Tim, under Catholicism, if there's a complication in the pregnancy that threatens the life of the mother, like uterine cancer, she can opt to have her uterus removed while pregnant. Under Protestantism and life of the mother legislation, she can do the same thing. She can opt to have her uterus removed. So I don't understand where the daylight is between these two positions.
What's the
difference? How can you say the Catholics are total prohibition, but Prots are pro-death when it comes to life of the mother, if this is effectively the same exact scenario in the situation?
Well, Nate, if that is the only scenario, then there is no difference because you've just defined quite well the principle of double effect. But my understanding is that in the case of the Southern Baptists and a whole host of, in fact, every Protestant denomination that I have examined, every single one, that it's not necessary that you have the case of double effect. It is simply the case that if the life of the mother is in danger, you can kill the child. Now, am I incorrect in that?
So could you give me like a more specific scenario? Because I went to the Catholic Answers website and I saw the a double effect scenario that they gave was uterine
Yeah.
cancer.
Okay,
So could
this
you
is-
tell me an example where there is daylight?
Yeah, that if you had a case where, let's say, the woman was having difficulty in delivering the child, and the doctors determine that her life is in danger, the child can be directly killed. In every Protestant denomination that I examined, whereas in Catholic theology, you cannot. You can, in some cases, as you mentioned, you can remove a cancerous uterus or a defective fallopian tube, but that's not the same as directly killing the child. So that's the difference, is the Catholic Church says, no, you can never directly kill the child. There's not a Protestant denomination that I know of that teaches that.
All right, Nate. Thanks very, very much. Boy, every.
But again,
Okay.
just for Nate, if I'm wrong, I would love to see what denomination you're referring to, because the only denomination that I'm aware of that even limits abortion to cases where the life of the mother is in danger is the Southern Baptist denomination. Most that I examined, now granted, I only examined about, 40, 50, 60, somewhere in there denominations. And you can't look at all the denominations. You could spend the rest of your life, because there's literally tens of thousands of denominations out there. But that's a very, very large difference. That is directly killing the child in order to save the mother versus removing a cancerous uterus or a defective fallopian tube, because there you're not direct. That's what double effect is. You're actually attending to the malady, the defective fallopian tube or the cancerous uterus. You're not directly killing the child. That is murder and can never be allowed in any circumstance. Okay, just to be clear.
Got it. Thank you, Nate. Thanks very, very much. I have heard you say that quite a few times, Tim. And can I just have a
Sure.
follow-up question? Because so would the Catholic Church advocate that all of that be enshrined in law, that be the law? Or do we just have to say that that's the practice?
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
It's a great question. And ultimately, of course, the goal is to have that enshrined in law. But we're in a situation now where we have to use the incremental approach that Pope St. John Paul so wonderfully laid out in Evangelium Vitae, especially section 71 to 73, and there in 73 he gets at it in particular, the incremental approach. So as a Catholic lawgiver can say, you know what, I personally, absolutely, I'm against abortion in any situation whatsoever. However, we are willing to compromise, and I can say as a Catholic, I want to limit the harm done in whatever way I can. For example, if we in our country are saying viability, okay, I can say, hey, that's good that when a baby's viable, you can't kill it anymore, but we need to do better than that.
Right.
And let's take it back further. So we want to state our position. Yes, this is the ultimate goal. But then the incremental approach, and I wish more legislators would say that and say it loudly during election cycles, that, it's okay to compromise as long as you let your principles be known, and that compromise is never to directly will or legislate for murder. But see, you can legislate for a lessening of the harm that's caused by abortion by saying, okay, let's, and again, for argument's sake, I'm saying if presently it's viability, we want to say, no, that's not good enough, not just viability. Praise God for that. It's better than abortion all through 9 months, but we need to do better than that. Maybe we can go back to, as has been, the argument of late, when the baby feels pain, when there's a heartbeat,
right,
and that sort of thing would lessen the harm that's being done while never compromising the ultimate goal
Right.
of saying never can you directly kill an innocent baby. Does that get at it?
Yeah, that gets exactly at it. Tim Staples is our guest. It's open forum. Your calls welcome. I think just one line open right now, 888-318-7884. We got to take that first break. We'll be right back with more calls.
Catholic Answers Live.
Do you have a question but prefer to ask it privately? Catholic Questions can help. Go to CatholicQuestions.com to ask your question online, email us, drop us a letter, or give us a call. Longtime Catholic Answers Live apologist and author Jim Blackburn or another Catholic Questions apologist will be happy to assist you. Catholic Questions proudly supports Catholic Answers Live, so visit us at CatholicQuestions.com today. That's CatholicQuestions.com.
EWTN uses the power of radio to reach people whenever and wherever they're searching for answers to questions about their Catholic faith. EWTN radio is heard on over 500 domestic and international AM and FM radio affiliates. For a complete list of programs and how to hear EWTN radio, visit EWTN.com and click radio. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Just a couple of notes for you. One, we're going to have new shows all this week, so we're not abandoning our post for Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. I call them Thanksgiving and Upset Stomach. Those are the names of those 2 days for me. And we'll be doing one for each of those, a brand new show for each of those, and I know that they're really, really good shows. And I can't remember what the other thing was, so I'm going to let Tim take a call, and then I'll think of it. Julio in Fresno, California, watching on YouTube. You're next, Julio. Go ahead with your question for Tim.
Hi. I know that Proverbs 13:24, I believe, says, "He who spares the rod hates his son."
Oh, yes.
I was just curious if this is kind of in support of spanking children or punishing them with, some sort of that kind of punishment.
Yes, corporal punishment.
I just want to know a little bit. Yes, and also I would appreciate if you could give me any resources on
Sure.
punishing or raising children.
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, a lot of folks are shocked to find that the Catholic Church and the Catechism of the Catholic Church quotes a very similar verse, spare the rod, if you spare the rod, is it spare the rod, spoil the child, or a similar text like that. And I personally like the Douay Rheims, "He that beateth his child shall save his soul from hell." There's something poetic about that, Cy Kellett. As a father of 7, beateth with the F on the end, And of course, it doesn't mean abusing children and such. But yeah, the Catechism references those texts of Scripture in the context of disciplining our children. Now, there is a healthy debate in the Church as to whether or not those verses should be taken in a more literal sense the way I do, and I believe the Catechism lends itself to that understanding, or whether in our modern era, and I know some very good Catholics, even some apologist friends of mine that I know, who don't believe in corporal punishment, but discipline, time out and other ways of disciplining. For me, it's not a matter of either and, it's or either or, it's both. But it's I think a healthy discussion in the church. I will often say in my presentations, I love my children. I love them before I spank them, while I'm spanking them, and after I spank them. And I believe that discipline is absolutely crucial in the development of children, and each child has to be ministered to in a different way. My daughter Rose, who's probably listening right now, I think I had to spank her about 2 or 3 times in her life, and after that, it was just the fear of dad that sufficed. And also, she's a tremendous girl. Luke, oh my goodness. Let's see. He's 16 now, so I can't do that anymore. You know, I gave it up about 2 weeks ago. I can't spank him. I'm joking, people. I'm joking. But, you know, each child is different. Some children need more discipline than others. But as a matter of whether you're going to go this route or that, I think it's just a matter of, you know, doing the research yourself. I personally did, and I believe that the track record of corporal punishment is just too old and too good to dismiss. But that's just Tim Staples talking. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now that would be a good book in favor of corporal punishment. Can you, Si?
Well, I mean, he did ask about parenting in general. That always makes me think of Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Dr. Ray, yes.
You're a better parent than you think you are, or one of those. I think that's the title. I mean, I would trust what Dr. Ray has to say, and Dr. Ray, a lot of his message is trust yourself. You're smarter than a lot of people who are experts. That work for you, Julio?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of You're a Better Parent Than You Think You Are? It is an excellent book by Dr. Ray Guarendi.
All right. Yeah, I'll check it out. Thank you.
All right. God bless you.
Thanks, Julio. Yeah, we got time. All right. Well, we got a call from the Virgin Islands.
All right.
Remy in the Virgin Islands, listening on the Alexa. Remy, go ahead with your question for Tim.
And God bless you.
You too.
I'm a recent revert. It's about a year now, but prior to that, I was a evangelical missionary for a couple of years when I came to Christ, and I've been praying the Rosary. And for myself, I use it pretty much to quiet my mind and prepare my heart to speak with God. Now, I've been on social media with some friends, and we've been trying to do it daily online.
Right.
But it's when we do it, we finish, and then everyone's like, all right, pack up, got to go. And I'm like, I feel like, can you guys recommend or am I wrong to think that we could do more with it? Because it just feels like,
sure,
you know, the biggest complaint or issue with evangelicals is that all we do is repetitive prayer, and it's like, you know, we do the Rosary. Then I'm like, okay, what do we do next? And they're like, oh, gotta go, we're done. And when I ask them, they're like, no, we're done, dude. And I'm like, that's kind of weird.
Right. Yeah. As a convert, I can tell you, I can remember the first time I went to a Rosary. You're bringing back memories for me, because I went to a little prayer group when I first became Catholic, and it was a bit odd for me. But I believe that a Rosary prayer group that just says the Rosary is powerful. It's a tremendously powerful prayer. It speaks for itself over 800 years of intense usage, the miracles attached, and so forth. But I tend to agree with you. If I'm leading a Rosary group, I do not just say the Rosary and then it's over, but I will always have a reflection afterward. Either thinking about the mysteries we just meditated on, maybe connecting it there, or opening up a discussion about them. That's a great way, I think, to end the Rosary. But if it's a prayer group that's what they do, is pray the Rosary, well, then praise God for that. That is a powerful prayer. And so, you can, in your own spiritual life, continue the meditation in front of the Blessed Sacrament, or continue the meditation in your own life, if the prayer, the prayer meeting has dismissed and everybody has gone. But I got to tell you, personally speaking, I agree with you. I think the Rosary, to me, always gets my mind going. And after the Rosary, I really do want to talk about it. Talk about the mysteries. They are so rich. And I've been praying the Rosary now virtually every day. Now, I can't say I've been perfect. I've missed some days here and there. But I have prayed virtually every day for my entire Catholic life over the last 36 years. How can it be 36 years? And I have to tell you, I still, when I pray the Rosary, things will come to my mind that I have to go, man, I got to write that down. because you make connections between mysteries, and God speaks to you. Our Blessed Mother will speak to you during the Rosary as well. So again, I tend to be in agreement with you that is a great time for discussion after the Rosary. But it depends upon the group.
Remy, how's that?
Yeah, no, I just, I was just, I'm praying with a lot of cradle Catholics, and I was born Catholic, but we didn't really practice. And I'm like, hey, so what are we gonna pray about now? And they're like, no, dude, we're done. And I'm like,
Yes.
I just was like, okay, like, is there something more? But no, I appreciate the suggestion.
Yeah, especially with prayers of petition, Catholics might be used to doing it before the Rosary. In a lot of places, that's it. A lot of the petitionary prayer will come before the Rosary. It's like you're saying, here's the things we're going to pray for while we're praying the Rosary. Right. So that might just be a habit thing.
I agree. When we do my wife and I lead our family in a nightly Rosary every evening, and we will do sometimes extended petitions. Where the kids, especially around the holidays, will start letting them just, what are your petitions? And those are very special times with the kids, and that you can do that with the adults as well. But you know what? What might be happening here is maybe Our Lady and our Lord maybe moving you to maybe start a Rosary group that will have a reflection after the Rosary. You ever thought of that?
Sorry, Remy, I put you on hold.
Oh,
have you thought?
Yeah, I actually.
You go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have, and I'm trying to run. I'm being kind of Jobish in it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the Lord is speaking.
It.
I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but maybe the Lord's dropping something into your heart there. We'll see. Stay in touch. I'd love to hear about it if it happens.
Remy already has all the suffering that comes with living in the Virgin Islands, though. I mean, it's a terrible burden to carry.
Oh, my goodness.
Living in the Virgin Islands. So God bless you and the cross you bear there, Remy. Let's go to Jerry in Rochester, New York, listening on the Station of the Cross. There's snow in New York, I heard.
Yeah, I'm in Rochester. We didn't get it. Actually, Buffalo got it. Imagine, believe it or not, they got 7 feet in certain areas where the Buffalo Bills play football.
Oh, my goodness.
7 feet of snow there.
That's what I heard about.
That's that lake effect, huh? Wow.
Yeah, sure is.
Wow.
Yeah, we get. That's why we get a lot of snow around here, is because we're surrounded by lakes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's on your mind?
I was calling. Pardon me?
Yeah, what's on your mind, brother?
Yeah, I was just calling about the references to the different figures in the Blessed Trinity. And what I'm saying is that, the first person of the Blessed Trinity is obviously referred to as Father, and Jesus came as a male. So I was wondering if it was actually appropriate to refer to the Holy Spirit in the feminine gender.
Right. Great question. And the answer is no. Here's a key distinction. If you go, and I give you homework, check out the Catechism of the Catholic Church, sections 239 and 240, and there's a great distinction made there between understanding that God is revealed as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So he is Father. He is like a mother. So, and you'll get some nice references. Check out the footnotes there. Again, that's sections 239 and 240, where God will be referred to as being like a mother. As a mother holds her child, so God holds us, and that sort of thing. But God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And as such, he is always he. Now, that doesn't mean he's male. And in fact, that section of the Catechism makes that clear. He is neither male nor female. Obviously, he does not have, sexual genitalia, right? But he is revealed as Father. Okay, and so it's inappropriate to refer to God as she, because he is like. Now, we understand that all the perfections that we refer to as feminine, be they wisdom or nurturing, even love itself, right? The caring, the intimacy and so forth. All of those that we may refer to as feminine, of course, are infinitely perfected in God, right? But once again, He is Father. And so when you refer to for God as Father, Son, Holy Spirit, He is always a He, and it is always inappropriate, wrong, to refer to Him as she or her. Okay, but again, make that distinction between He is a father, He's like a mother, and check it out there in the Catechism sections 239 and 240.
Thanks, Jerry. You can hear the music. Got to take a break. Right back with more Open Forum with Tim Staples on Catholic Answers Live. The recent decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade was a monumental victory for the pro-life movement. But the fight is far from over. With our new booklet, Why We're Pro-Life, we have produced the perfect tool to prepare you to have peaceful and convincing conversations to shed light on the truth about human life from conception to natural death. Catholic Answers is printing millions of copies of this booklet, and we plan simply to give them away. You can help us in two ways. First, by generously supporting this project. 25 cents prints one book. $2,500 prints 10,000, and so on. Second, by helping us distribute the booklet through your parish, your school, or the pro-life ministry you work with. Catholic Answers is going to blanket the country with Why We're Pro-Life, but only if you step up and help us. Thank you so much. For more information, visit whyweareprolife.com.
Want to know more about the origins of the Catholic Church? Joe Heschmeyer explores the beginnings of Christianity in The Early Church Was the Catholic Church. Joe digs deep into the words and actions of those who lived right after the apostles to refute anti-Catholic claims of how the faith was lived back then. Order your copy of The Early Church Was the Catholic Church today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
What if the voice of your deepest doubts about Catholicism rose up in the form of a human being and challenged you to defend your most foundational beliefs? That's the task apologist Trent Horn took upon himself in his new book, Devil's Advocate, a dialogue with his own best objections against the faith that he professes and defends. You can stand up against your doubts, and Trent will show you how. Pick up your copy of Devil's Advocate today at shop.catholic.com or at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
As the smells fill the house for Thanksgiving, let's make each other hungry tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on most of these EWTN stations.
Now back to more of Catholic Answers Live with Cy Kellett.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Lots of great calls today. One line open right now if you want to get in on the conversation. You're welcome. 888-318-7884, 888-488-31-TRUTH. I'll stress again, anybody's welcome. If you don't have to be a believer. If you got a question about the Catholic faith, any aspect, you want to know about God, you want to know about morals, you want to know about what the church teaches, you are welcome here. We're going to Peoria, Illinois now. See how this show plays in Peoria. David in Peoria, listening on Catholic.com. Thanks very much for the call, David. Go ahead with your question for Tim.
Hi.
Yes.
I was having a conversation with my friend the other day, and they've been struggling with sin in some ways, and a lot of hard situations have hit them recently, and they feel that God is punishing them because they failed to live up to that, and they keep pointing to verses such as "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," and things like that.
Right.
And I've been trying to have discussions about how there are negative effects from sin, but it's not a "I'm going to get you back" sort of a thing, and he feels kind of like God's out to get him. And I was wondering how you would balance, how you would express that for balancing God's justice and his love for us with those verses such as that.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job right there. I think you've got it. when you understand that in the Old Testament, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, does not mean God is vengeful. God is, as you say, perfectly just and infinitely merciful. So everything God does, he does well, right? The best. So he's not vengeful, I'm going to get you back. He is just. And of course, as James chapter 2 famously says, mercy triumphs over justice. God is merciful. And what is mercy but withholding just punishment as an act of love? So your friend or anybody who's struggling with this needs to understand that this is anthropomorphic language being used in the context of God intervening in a tribal culture in ancient Israel and the surrounding countries, where, remember, a spat between tribes can end up in genocide in the ancient world. I mean, you can. It was an incredibly brutal world. Not that ours isn't brutal today, and it is, and in some ways we're even worse today. But it was a very, very where cultures have rejected God, I should say. But David, it was a brutal culture, and that's the context in which God is saying, no, you don't seek vengeance. You have to be a just people, a loving people, a merciful people. That's what God is saying there, David. And so ultimate judgment belongs to God. You can bring that over into a New Testament context where St. Paul, for example, will famously say in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses, 3 through 6, it is a very small matter for me to be judged by you or any man's judgment, he says. I don't even judge my own self, says St. Paul. I have nothing on my conscience, but I am not thereby acquitted or justified. The one who will judge me is the Lord. Therefore, judge not until such time when the Lord comes, and then shall the hidden motives of the heart be manifest, and then shall each man have his reward from God. So notice, St. Paul is doing the same thing here that God was doing in the Old Testament and saying, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. He's warning the Corinthians the same way the inspired author of the Psalms, King David, if you will, is warning the people. You know, it's not your role to judge people, that is their inner motives, because you don't know their inner motives. God alone knows those inner motives. So when we're going to judge, we have to judge very carefully, and we have to keep it to judging actions and not the motives or the soul of the person. And that has been very much clarified in the New Testament to a degree way beyond where it was in the Old Testament, because, of course, they didn't have Jesus. And so for us, it's very clear, right? Yes, we have to judge. Jesus says in John 7:24, judge not according to appearances, but judge righteous judgment. So we need to judge, of course, we have to judge actions. When people's actions are faulty, we see our brother in sin, says James chapter 5, verse 20, and if we warn them of their sin, we have saved a soul from death, says St. James. So there is a time for judgment, but really the judgment has to be, you know, the old adage we all learned as kids. I mean, my mom taught us that as in Baptist, when we were going to Baptist Sunday school. Love the sinner, hate the sin. You know, we can say that kind of cliche, but that's a profound truth, Psycho.
Right, yeah.
Right, David? I mean, that is a profound truth that if we really took that to heart, it would change our entire culture. Our whole cancel culture and the craziness now in this culture, if we truly did love the sinner and hate the sin, that is transformative. But ultimately, David, that's what God's getting at in both vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, and in St. Paul saying, don't judge motives, judge actions. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. And
all right.
Yeah, it's so important to love the sinner, for, you know, sin means to miss the mark, and obviously we all miss the mark.
I'm good at it.
What a beautiful thing.
And Cy Kellett's good at it. I know that.
Exactly. So what a beautiful thing repentance becomes then when it's someone shows you the true way so you could pursue what you were truly seeking. And
Amen.
yeah.
Amen, brother.
God bless you. Thank you very much.
God bless you. And, forgive me for picking on Cy Kellett, but it's so easy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually have to confess, I am quite an expert at sin. I've not overcome it.
No, amen.
So I don't mind that one.
Not till a week after you're dead, right?
That's what they say. Yeah, a week after you're dead. Yeah.
But you know what, brother? You think about that. A lot of times we as Christians we can read over these verses and kind of miss the profundity of it.
Yeah.
Right? Love your enemies. Mm-hmm. Matthew 5:43 and 44. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Love your enemies. That is so powerfully transformative if we would do it. But of course, that's the hard part, isn't it?
It is.
Do it.
David, thank you very much for the question, and God bless you in your conversation with your friend. We'll pray for your friend because it's hard to trust in the mercy of God. It takes a lot to get us to trust in the mercy of God. I don't know why that is, but it takes work to get there. And most of the work done by angels, not by us.
Amen.
Eduardo in Florida, watching on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, Eduardo. Go ahead with your question for Tim Staples.
Hi, how are you? This is my question. I basically got insurance, like dental insurance in my job with a company whose name I'm not going to mention. And I haven't even used the benefits, but I learned that company does other kinds of medical coverage, and they cover abortion, and they are kind of also, not kind, like they are advocates for abortion.
Right.
So I was wondering if I am kind of morally culpable for having done business with them, or if I can use the service to which I already subscribe.
Right.
I understand that I cannot unsubscribe until the year is done, so they're already taking my money anyways. But I don't know if I could use the benefits. And even after that, I was wondering, I don't think there is any insurance that does not cover for abortions as well. So I pretty much want to know if I could make use of the benefits that pretty much I'm already enrolled in through my job insurance.
Okay.
Yes, it's a great question. And generally speaking, the answer is yes, you can. The church has not addressed every single situation and every particular company, but in general, the church has piped in on this question and has said that we're talking about a material cooperation in evil that is remote enough, because when you're paying into a massive pool, right, to secure health coverage for your family, and a relative pittance of that is being taken out relative to the entire pot. That is no doubt material cooperation in evil, and that's not something to be taken lightly, but it is remote enough to where a Catholic can, generally speaking, because we always have to leave the door open for particular companies that could be so heinous that perhaps we would have to reinvestigate that particular company. But generally speaking, I know of no situation where a Catholic would be in mortal sin by using their health coverage in the United States. Now, having said that, we should object to our dollars, even if it's pennies of ours, going to something as heinous as murder. Right, absolutely. And it is a good thing to look into the prospect of finding a health coverage that does not. And in fact, at Catholic Answers, we're going through that right now.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the name? Because it just jumped out of my brain. Right.
The Rita
I was
Trust?
looking at our new health coverage plans just before we came on the air, and I can't remember who it is.
Well, Rita is the...
Rita.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's RETA.
Yeah,
right?
but those are but they're a nonprofit that works with Catholic institutions.
Right.
So I don't know if Eduardo's company is a Catholic institution.
That's right. Well, Eduardo, that you brought this up, and immediately I started thinking, oh my goodness, we're going through this right now at Catholic Answers. We have a company called Rita, R-E-T-A, as Cy mentioned. And by the way, I had never heard of them until today.
Yeah.
I just looked into it. We had a meeting here earlier.
Yesterday.
It was yesterday, and I couldn't make it, so I'm looking at the stuff today, and I did not even know. This is an awesome company that is now covering dioceses all over the place, scores of dioceses and whatnot, and they do not participate in any way, any dollars in abortion and so forth. So, I say that to you to say this. It is worth doing diligence and taking a look, because I have to say, I didn't know. I mean, perhaps I should have, Cy Kellett.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, but they were only insuring dioceses before. So
Right.
it's a new thing.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
I don't know how new,
because
but
I
I know.
wasn't at the meeting yesterday.
I was barely there.
Yeah, but at any rate, I'm sorry for getting off onto our situation here, but it is something that's worth looking into. But let your heart not be troubled. You can use your insurance as is, while if you can, look into whether or not there are companies that don't support these heinous sorts of immoralities. Does that make sense, brother?
Yes, but I wanted to say, like, this company, I know that besides covering abortions, they support, like many other companies, after Roe versus Wade was overturned.
Yes.
So in that case, will I still be able to use those benefits?
Yes, yes.
Being in a state of grace?
Yes, I believe so. Now, again, I agree with you that there is a new situation at hand. Since Roe has been overturned, we have new situations now where you have companies that are formally involved in abortion now, in paying for employees, for example, to go to another state to have abortion. That ups the ante. There is no doubt about that, because now you're talking about formal cooperation. However, that still is not formal cooperation for you. You are not formally cooperating in these abortions. That is between the insurance company, your company, and that sort of thing. So as of now, I don't believe that has substantially changed things. It certainly is something we've got to keep an eye on. But again, you are not formally cooperating in abortion by using the health care for your family.
And if you want more information on formal and material cooperation with evil, you can get that at Catholic.com. You just put in those words, formal and material, and you'll get lots of articles there. The number is 888-318-7884. Lots more questions to come, but we got to take a very quick break. We'll do that now and be right back with more Open Forum with Tim Staples.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The most original and exclusive Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
One time somebody said to me, "Why don't you air these people?" And I said, "No, because I don't think they're Catholic." He says, "By what right do you have to say that?" I said, "I own the network."
Mother Angelica Live Classics. Every morning, 2 Eastern, on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Jim Blackburn will be with us next hour, and we'll continue with Open Forum. This hour, we have Tim Staples here with us, the author of Behold Your Mother, a biblical and historical defense of the Marian doctrines, and Nuts and Bolts, a practical how-to guide to evangelism.
Whoa!
I nailed it!
He got it!
Got them both. Before I go back to the calls, I want to ask you this. Are you thankful for Catholic Answers? We want to share your story on our Giving Tuesday story at Instagram. And here's how. If you want to record yourself in a story-length video, less than 15 seconds, saying what you get from Catholic Answers, what you love about Catholic Answers, however you want to do it, send us your video via DM. That's direct message, as was explained to me before the program. Send it on or before Giving Tuesday, November 29th, and then watch your testimony and others when we share it in our story in 1 week for Giving Tuesday. Share your story via direct message with us on Instagram. Let's see. Where are we going on the phones? We're going to Philip in Lakeland, Florida. This is I don't know why we get state days. Like yesterday was Texas Day. Today's Florida Day. A whole bunch of calls coming from Florida. Philip in Lakeland, Florida, watching on YouTube. We're glad you're here, Philip. Go ahead with your question for Tim.
Hey, gentlemen. I hope you're having a good evening. Speaking of Behold Your Mother, it's actually sitting right beside me. I've started to read it a little bit. I think
All right.
I've definitely been away from the faith from a while, but I feel that the Mary could be calling me to the Catholic Church.
That's beautiful.
God. Beautiful, brother.
I guess my question is,
yes,
in regards to universal reconciliation.
Yes.
I was having a conversation with my friends today, and I actually didn't know how to really answer this with how the Catholic Church views this. So anything on that would be helpful.
Right, certainly. We have to make a fine distinction. The Catholic Church has condemned from the 3rd century forward. In fact, it was called Origenism. And Origen had a number of heterodox views. That was one of them. Great teacher, great man, a good son of the church. Died, we believe, in union with the church, but not a saint, most likely because of his what would come to be known as heterodox views. And he did believe in a final sort of reconciliation that all souls would be saved. Now, that is condemned by the church. However, we have today in the church a somewhat popular teaching, kind of made famous by Hans Urs von Balthasar in a paper he wrote, became a book.
That all might be
Dare
We Hope, yeah.
Yeah, Dare We Hope That All May Be Saved. Now, that is not what was condemned by the church. And so we have to be careful here. What was condemned by the church was the idea that all souls will be saved. That you cannot hold as a Catholic. But what von Balthasar posited, and some, like Bishop Barron today, hold to, is that it's possible. Notice the difference? They're not saying it's going to happen, just that it's possible it could happen. Now, that has never been condemned formally as a formal proposition, the way Origenism was condemned and was repeatedly condemned. Now, is it heterodox? Yes, it is. It's contrary to the ordinary teaching of the church. And so, with all due respect to those who hold it, if you go to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, for example, section 1034, let me read it to you. Jesus often speaks of Gehenna, of the unquenchable fire reserved for those who, to the end of their lives, refuse to believe and be converted, where both soul and body can be lost. Jesus, and here's the kicker, Jesus solemnly proclaims that he will, quote, send his angels, and they will gather all evildoers and throw them into the furnace of fire, and he will pronounce the condemnation, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire. And of course, that's a reference to Matthew chapter 25, verses 41 through 46, where Jesus solemnly proclaims that some are going to hell. Okay, and so the idea that it's possible that no one could be in hell contradicts this clear teaching of Jesus Christ as well as the ordinary teaching of the church. But a lot of people are surprised, side, to know that the church has never formally declared that in a definitive way, that we can't say it's possible. It's contrary to the ordinary teaching of the church. We should not be teaching that, folks. And it doesn't matter who you are. You shouldn't be teaching it because it contradicts both sacred scripture and, of course, the catechism, as I mentioned there in section 1034. But at any rate, does that help at all? Because I just wanted to make the distinction because a lot of people don't between Origenism that was formally condemned and this teaching of the possibility that all might be saved, which, though heterodox, should not be taught, is not something that's been formally condemned as such. Does that help at all, brother?
Yes, sir. I think you hit the nail on the head.
All right. God
Thanks,
bless
Philip.
you. Thanks for your call. Thanks for all you folks that call, because your calls, we talked about this, during the radio drive. Thanks so much for all those who donate, but all of you who call in. It takes a little bit of guts, to call in and, get on the line and so forth and ask these questions. And remember, when you call in questions, it's not just for you. And I know you're calling in for you, but there are so many people out there that need to hear the answer to that question. So you're being a blessing when you call in and ask a question, not just to yourself and your family, but to lots of others as well.
Thanks, Philip. Let's go to Marion in Wyoming, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Marion, go ahead with your question for Tim.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I was listening to the part of the question on viability earlier, and I would like to propose a different way of looking at that.
Okay.
And maybe even speaking of that. In relation to the abortion debate, the word viability appears to be used exclusively as meaning able to live and develop outside the womb. Well, I argue that unborn babies are 100% viable where they are.
Amen.
Because the womb is the place where they live.
That's their natural home.
Absolutely. I am 100% in agreement. But remember, when we're engaged in conversation in the world, it's great to make that point. And that's why we don't agree with the argument that says viability is when you can't kill a baby any longer. We don't agree with that at all because you say a baby is viable from the instant of its conception. But the way the term is used is to mean that a baby can live outside of the womb. So that's how we were using it. And it's okay to use it that way, but I think you're a good reminder to us, Marion, that we always have to interject into the conversation our absolute opposition to the killing of an innocent human being, regardless from the instant of conception. And so your point is very well taken.
Yeah, and it's kind of nasty to make the implication that the child is non-viable when the
Yes.
child is not doing anything except growing. I mean,
That's right.
That's right. The kid is viable.
It is. It's so sad. We have a culture that's constantly changing words. Listen, I don't like to use the word gay. It was a beautiful word, and we all knew what it meant. It meant to be happy.
Like in the gay 90s.
Yes, and I think of one of my favorite Christmas movies, The Bishop's Wife, when Loretta Young is brushing her hair and David Niven, who is the Bishop Brom, Brom, says, he was watching her brush, you do it so gaily. And she said, well, I feel gay, I mean, it meant a totally different thing back then than today. And I hate the change of language, but hey, you know what? We got to live in the world, though we're not of it.
Marion, thanks very much for that important reminder. We got lots more folks on the line. If you're on the line, stay on the line. If you haven't called...
No, it's not over.
Yeah, your part is over.
No.
Jim Blackbird's going to be here now. There's 3 lines open, so if you'd like to call, you're very welcome. 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. Don't forget, there's the big sale going on right now at shop.catholic.com. Everything's on sale. 10, 20, 25, even up to 50% off on a few items. Check it out now at shop.catholic.com. You don't need a promo code. We'll be right back with more Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. As promised, Jim Blackburn, our guest. Jim, a longtime apologist here at Catholic Answers. He ran the forums here, and now he's got his own apostolate, which at Catholic Answers a few years ago, we had to stop doing some of what we were doing in order to take on some new tasks. And Jim was like, you know what, I can pick up some of that. And Jim, congratulations. Today is the second anniversary of Catholic Questions and your website, CatholicQuestions.com.
That's right. It was 2 years ago today. You and I sat right here, and I mentioned that some other apologists and I had gotten together and decided that since the Q&A department with Catholic Answers had been closed down, for understandable reasons, that we would just go ahead and offer the idea that if people have questions, especially around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, families are coming home, families are getting together for meals, sharing gifts and all this, and it's inevitable that there will be questions or discussions about faith, politics and everything else, but particularly religious questions that come up. And sometimes people don't know how to respond to them. So, we wanted to offer people an opportunity to ask that question when it's fresh and get an answer, within a day or two, rather than having to wait till the next time Catholic Answers Live came on with the Q&A open forum. And we thought we'd do it through the holiday season, and come January, almost 2 years ago, it was still going strong, so we have continued to do it, and here it is 2 years later, and it's something that has become very popular. We have not only the website, CatholicQuestions.com, we have the apps for iPhone and the Google Play Store app. We have, people can write us, our address is on the website, they can call us. Anyway, that anyone needs to get a hold of us, your preference, you can find it at CatholicQuestions.com and contact us. So we're here to answer those questions. And if I could mention this, Cy, we're actually looking for a couple more apologists, whether it be a senior or junior apologist. We're looking for a couple more to help us out, especially as we're getting busier now that Thanksgiving is approaching and Christmas. So if anyone's interested in that, you don't have to be a professional apologist, but you need to, be at a level, at least for a junior apologist, be at a level where you've been doing it a while, answering questions and helping people with apologetics, maybe giving talks at your parish, those types of things. And, we consider pairing you with a more senior apologist to get you up and running in apologetics. And it's just a great springboard for what could go on to be, a professional level apologetics career. So if anyone's interested, just contact us at Catholic Questions.
CatholicQuestions.com. Yeah, no, that's fine. CatholicQuestions.com. Jim Blackburn doing a great service over there. I hope you will take advantage of it. Now that you've built it, though, and you got the app and you got the website and everything, do you have any fear that Elon Musk will try to take it over?
Well, no, not at this point. Not at this point.
All right.
I think if he made us an offer, we might consider it, but we'd have to still run it because the most important thing here is that these questions get answered.
But if he came to you with $44 billion, for example, and said, I'd like to own CatholicQuestions.com, you would consider the offer as long as the arrangement was right?
I'd have to talk to my attorneys, but I'd consider that, Si.
You have attorneys? Well, you would in that case. You might not have them now, but you'd have them
One
then.
of our apologists is actually an attorney by day, and he's an apologist by night. And so that thing can work out. But yeah, I'm not looking at selling off Catholic Questions. This is something that I do from my heart. We are supported by donations, and so we certainly appreciate the donations to keep us in business. But this is something that we're passionate about. We want to be answering these questions. We want to help people with their questions. And but if you talk to Elon Musk, have him call me.
All right. Okay. If he calls me. 888-318-7884 is the number here where you can ask Jim your questions live. Jim Blackburn, our guest. Any question from anyone is welcome. And we're going to go to Jim in Evansville, Indiana, watching on Facebook. Jim, we're glad you're here. Go ahead with your question for the other Jim.
Yes, it's in reference to communion. I believe the Catholic way of what communion is, but I heard someone say to a person that wasn't Catholic that their communion was not valid. So I guess my question is, why is the Catholic Church's communion valid and others aren't?
Okay, Jim. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's true that the communion that is offered, the communion services and such in most Protestant communities or evangelical communities, is not actually they're not actually consecrating the bread and the wine or the grape juice, and they're not actually receiving the real presence or the sacrament of the Eucharist there. They're kind of going through, trying to do what they saw that Jesus did at the Last Supper, but they've lost in their theology and they've lost in their practice the real presence itself. The Catholic Church first really, I guess, kind of started experiencing this when the Reformation began and the Protestant denominations started springing up. And as these different denominations became their own, they changed some of their theology and they changed some of their sacramental practices. And we could see this live and in living color with the Anglican Church back a little over 100 years ago. Pope Leo XIII wrote a papal bull specifically about Anglican orders and thus the validity of the sacraments in the Anglican Communion. If you can read that online, it's titled Apostolicae Curae, 2 words, Apostolicae Curae, Latin words. Type that in as best you can and you'll find it. And he mentions in there that the theology of the Anglican Communion had lost a lot of what it understood Jesus meant and what the church has always done when we ordain bishops and we ordain priests. They had lost that, and you cannot have valid sacraments, I mean, other than baptism, let's say, without a valid priesthood, without a valid holy order. And the Eucharist must be consecrated by a validly ordained priest, or it's not going to be valid. So that's what we see in most of the Protestant communities, if not all of them, all of the large ones. It's interesting, though, Jim, that the Orthodox churches, which are not in communion with the Catholic Church, they have maintained apostolic succession, and they have maintained the theology for the sacramental theology that's necessary to continue to have valid holy orders and to continue to have valid sacraments. So they're very different in that regard. They're very much closer to how we are in the Catholic Church, lacking really very little. Just communion with the Pope is the biggest thing that's to bring the Orthodox back into full communion with the Catholic. Protestantism and the validity of the priesthood and the validity of the sacraments, they've lost that. So, does that make sense, Jim? Is he still there?
He is still there. Well, you know what? I'm going to assume that does make sense, or maybe we're having a little connection trouble. I don't know. But Jim, thank you very much for the call. I got to take this break in any case, so we'll take the break and we'll be right back with more Open Forum with Jim Blackburn on Catholic Answers Live.
Your questions, Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
He is only one of 4 popes honored as the Great.
Matthew Bunsen and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Leo I was pope at a time when Roman civilization was being overrun by barbarian armies. He stood as a light in the darkness and even saved the city of Rome from destruction by Attila and the Huns. Leo died in 461.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. It's open forum. You can call and ask whatever you like. 888-318-7884. Maybe you have a moral question. I want to know what the Catholic Church teaches about some moral issue. Maybe you got a Bible question. Maybe you got a question about a doctrine of the church or a practice of the church, whatever it is. 888-318-7884. The founder and still proprietor of CatholicQuestions.com is our guest, and that is Jim Blackburn, and he's very happy to take your call. 888-318-7884. I think I'm going to Mark in Boise, Idaho. Does that look right to everybody? All right, going to Mark in Boise, Idaho. Mark, thanks for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Jim Blackburn.
Hi, Mark.
Mark? Are we having a phone problem? Mark in Boise, can you hear me? All right, I'll tell you what, Mark, I'm going to put you on hold, and I'm going to come back to you. So it may be just a momentary glitch that will pass. Edgar will check the line with you right now. In the meantime, we'll go to Samuel in Central California watching on YouTube. Samuel, thank you for the call. Go ahead with your question for Jim Blackburn. No, this is a phone problem. Okay, it's all right. Jim, we just got a phone problem.
Okay.
So if you're on the line, just hang on the line. Don't go anywhere because we'll get to your questions, and I'll give you a what we call a dropped call because we have some dropped calls. I want folks on the line to be able to ask their questions. But Mark in Boise did call, and his question was, if God is outside of time and in the eternal, how does God know if someone didn't honor the Sabbath or know of delayed obedience?
Okay. Well, then I think the best way to approach that is the way we understand eternity, and this is very difficult for us in our human minds and our human experience to understand. We are creatures that were created within time, and we experience time. We have yesterday, today, tomorrow that we haven't experienced yet. Well, God in eternity is, we might call any point in time along our timeline, is eternally now to God. All points of time from the beginning of time to the end of time are equally present to God. So God knows what happened yesterday, what's happening right now, and He knows what's going to happen tomorrow. He experiences time, I guess, in a different way than we do. Now, we don't know how our experience of time is going to be in eternity, but since God did create us as body, soul composites, and we will have bodies have motion, we do believe that there will be some experience of time in eternity for us, but we don't know how that will work compared to how it works for us now. We might have better glimpses into the past and the present and the future in our own experience of eternity than we do now. Of course, it won't be God's omniscience. God didn't create us to be omniscient, but it will be, I'm sure, very interesting as what God has prepared for those who love. St. Paul tells us it's we can only speculate on that. But God being in an eternal now, and all of time, he experiences as though it's present to him at every moment of time, every moment of eternity. So that's how he can know those types of things. Did that answer the question, Cy, do you think?
I think that did, in fact, answer the question. But I can't speak for the caller, but I can't speak to the caller either at the moment because we have a little bit of a technical problem going on. But fortunately, we do have lots and lots of questions from callers. And so I'm going to continue to read you some of the questions, but I won't be able to listen to the callers, I don't think, for a moment. I'll tell you what, we'll see. Let's see if we can talk with Samuel in Central California, who we were trying to talk to a second ago. And Samuel is watching on YouTube. I'll tell you what, Samuel, just say hello if you're there, and then we'll know if we can hear you. Samuel, are you there with us? Sure sounds like...
Hi, Samuel.
All right. We're going to come back to you, Samuel. I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep trying some lines here and see if I can get somebody on the line with us. But let's try this. Let's go to Alyssa in Sacramento. Alyssa, are you there with us?
Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
Alyssa.
Yes, I'm
you
here.
are
I
a
can hear you.
savior. Go ahead with your question, Alyssa.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much for your time. It's my first time calling in, and I got so excited I got through so fast. My question is around in terms of pro-life arguments. I understand that the core question when it comes to arguing for pro-life is what are the unborn? And a lot of the times we stick to science and we argue it just because we don't know where the other person is coming from, whether they believe in God and whatnot. And so a lot of times we say, well, science will say that life begins at conception, so therefore life should be protected. But I was wondering, from a place of religion, is there anything in the catechism that teaches us when a soul is there? Is the soul present at the time of conception? Is there something that the catechism teaches about that? And the reason why I ask is, if there's teaching that there is a soul at the time of conception, then obviously it's a protective life. But can someone go back and say, well, we don't really know if there's a soul at the time of conception, so therefore it should be okay to kill the unborn because it is just the body. Is there already a soul? And I'm hoping I'm making that clear.
Yeah, that seems very clear to me, Jim.
It is. And yes, God, and I'm just going to look this up real quick. Catechism mentions that in paragraph 366, the church teaches that every spiritual soul is created immediately by God. It is not produced by the parents. So immediately meaning from the moment of conception. As soon as the body, the parents provide the physical aspect, the sperm and the egg, and they come together to form a new human being that is neither the mother nor the father, immediately God creates the soul. So we have that in paragraph 366 of the Catechism.
Alyssa, does that make sense?
Exactly. Yes. That makes
Okay.
perfect sense. And that is it. That's my question. I appreciate the time.
If Alyssa, hang on a quick second, because I want to ask a follow-up, and maybe you'll want to follow up on my follow-up. But the church, Jim, I just want to throw this out to you and see what you say. But the church didn't always know about conception because we learned that from scientists who told us about how conception happens. So the church didn't always know this, but because the church knows that the life of the body begins with conception, now it's a relatively easy question to answer. When does the soul become present? Because you can't have a living human body without a soul.
That's true. But even when there was question about when ensoulment occurred, the church has always taught that once the mother knows she's pregnant, abortion is always immoral. So even when theologians were speculating about ensoulment, saying occurring at the quickening, when you first have movement from the baby, or various different theological ideas about when the ensoulment takes place, that was kind of a side argument to whether or not abortion was moral. Abortion was always considered immoral from the time the mother knew she was pregnant until, of course, the baby was born. So that is actually a separate question.
Yeah, fair enough. Alyssa, that makes all sense. Makes sense to you?
It definitely does, and I appreciate that follow-up question. I think that's really insightful, and it definitely does. And I don't have any other follow-up questions.
All right, thanks, Alyssa. Yeah, because certainly, Jim, the church has, in its writings, and one assumes in its preaching as well, opposed abortion from the first century. There was never a time when the church didn't oppose abortion. This is something people are quite deceptive about sometimes, but other people just don't know that. The record of the Catholic Church has been clear from the very birth of the Catholic Church on this.
Yes.
Samuel, I'm going to try you again in Central California, watching on YouTube. I hope we get you this time. Samuel, you there with us?
Yes.
Yay!
This is Samuel.
Go ahead, Samuel. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead with your question.
All right. Lovely. Thank you so much. So as a young man who was baptized into the Catholic Church as an infant, but became a Protestant as a teenager, I didn't I wasn't able to be as deeply rooted, especially since my parents weren't really actively practicing the cultural Catholics. So I just had a question about the Blessed Theotokos. Now that I've come off of the anti-Catholic rhetoric and really anti-traditionalism rhetoric that I've experienced in my Protestant churches. So I just wanted more information as to, say, the different, I don't know if they're apparitions of the Blessed Mother, you know, like the Virgen de Guadalupe. Those have kind of confused me as a young adult now. So I would appreciate any insight on that.
Yeah, what exactly is the question? That's kind of a broad
sorry,
perspective.
Like,
I get that.
I think, sure. I'm sorry about that. I would say, so is it that the Theotokos, she's had different appearances in different parts of the world, like appeared to different people? Is that what that is? Like,
okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I understand what you're saying, and let me approach it this way. First of all, you're mentioning the Theotokos, and maybe we should explain for listeners who don't know what that means. Theotokos is a term that means God bearer, and Mary was defined, or was called the Theotokos at the Council of Ephesus in the year 431. So very early in church history, it was settled doctrinal matter that Mary is the Theotokos, the God-bearer. She was the mother of God. Now, this wasn't about Mary, though. This was about who is Mary the mother of. Is Mary the mother of just a human being? Is she, it really was all about Jesus. Who is Jesus? And Jesus is God. Jesus is God incarnate. So Mary, as Jesus' mother, is actually the mother of God. She's the God-bearer. Through her pregnancy and birth of Jesus, she is the God-bearer. So that's what we mean when we use the term Theotokos. You can read more about that. The Council of Ephesus, the documents from the Council of Ephesus are widely available online. You can read more about the Theotokos there. Also in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 495, talks about the Theotokos and the various places we come to understand that Jesus, or that Mary is the mother of God. Now, as far as Mary appearing down through history, there have been what are called apparitions, and those apparitions were situations where the church has looked at these claims, whether they be like the children of Fatima or the peasant in Mexico at Our Lady of Guadalupe, these types of things. The church has investigated these claims and determined these appearances of Mary to be worthy of belief. No one is required to necessarily believe in any particular apparition except the seer, I suppose. But the church has deemed them worthy of belief, and so there can be value to them for us. If the church is recognizing that, wow, this really appears to have happened, this is worthy of belief, there could be something there, a practice, maybe a devotion that can be beneficial to us. But none of these apparitions have added to the faith or changed the faith in any way. They are simply meant to supplement for the seer, or maybe certain people at a certain time, supplement their faith in some way, but not add to it or change it in any way. And you can read about apparitions. There have been many, and not just of Mary, many apparitions down through the history of the church. And just go to EWTN, I believe, has a page on the various different apparitions, and read about those. And Our Lady of Guadalupe is a big one here in the Americas, of course, and Our Lady of Fatima is another one that many Americans have a devotion to. So check those out, and if you have more questions about them, contact Catholic Answers again, or contact me over at Catholic Questions, and be glad to help you more.
Samuel, I got to leave it there because we're coming up on the break, but thank you very, very much for that question. It seems like the phones are working, so we're going to keep working the phones. We'll do that right after this. Don't forget, Catholic Answers shop, full of all kinds of great Catholic resources. Every single one of them on sale right now. Just head over to shop.catholic.com. 10, 20, 25, 50% off on some things. Check it all out. You don't need any promo code. Shop.catholic.com. The recent decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade was a monumental victory for the pro-life movement. But the fight is far from over. With our new booklet, Why We're Pro-Life, we have produced the perfect tool to prepare you to have peaceful and convincing conversations to shed light on the truth about human life from conception to natural death. Catholic Answers is printing millions of copies of this booklet, and we plan simply to give them away. You can help us in two ways. First, by generously supporting this project. 25 cents prints one book. $2,500 prints 10,000, and so on. Second, by helping us distribute the booklet through your parish, your school, or the pro-life ministry you work with. Catholic Answers is going to blanket the country with why we're pro-life, but only if you step up and help us. Thank you so much. For more information, visit whyweareprolife.com.
Want to know more about the origins of the Catholic Church? Joe Heschmeyer explores the beginnings of Christianity. In the early church was the Catholic Church. Joe digs deep into the words and actions of those who lived right after the apostles to refute anti-Catholic claims of how the faith was lived back then. Order your copy of The Early Church Was the Catholic Church today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
As Catholic apologetics have gotten stronger, Protestant responses have gotten stronger as well. And now they have their own answers to rebut the standard Catholic proofs. Don't fret, we've got you covered. In his new book, Meeting the Protestant Response, apologist Carlo Broussard gives well-reasoned biblical answers to Protestant comebacks. Order your copy of Meeting the Protestant Response today at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
As the smells fill the house for Thanksgiving, let's make each other hungry tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on most of these EWTN stations.
Now back to more of Catholic Answers Live with Cy Kellett.
Bienvenidos back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Jim Blackburn is our guest. And it's almost Thanksgiving. I cannot believe it's almost Thanksgiving. It just doesn't have that Thanksgiving feel. Maybe it has that Thanksgiving feel in Buffalo, New York, where they have 7 feet of snow. But I'm not feeling the... You live up in the hills, Sarah. Does it feel Thanksgiving up there above the tree line? Yeah, it does? All right. Oh, at night it does. Yeah. At night it's getting down into the 60s around my house. It's still not a Thanksgiving feeling. It doesn't. Jim, are you feeling it? Are you feeling the Thanksgiving feeling? Are you in the holiday spirit?
It's coming up fast. It has seemed to have really snuck up on us, but it's, you watch the calendar, the days tick away. We've got 2 celebrations of Thanksgiving this year. Yeah.
What does that mean? We've got 2 celebrations of Thanksgiving.
Well, in my family, we have 2 different celebrations.
Oh, so you
my daughter is a nurse, and she has to work on Thanksgiving itself. So we're doing one thing with some of the family, and then another thing another day. So
that's nice.
It is.
Will there be multiple turkeys involved?
I believe so. Yeah.
Nice. Not good for the turkey community, but that is very nice that your daughter, who's a nurse, gets a fresh turkey. We're going to Indiana in Salem, Oregon. Watching on Facebook. Indiana, thanks for being patient with us as we've worked out these phone issues. Go ahead with your question for Jim.
Hi. So my question is about being in the state of grace. I was always told that you shouldn't really be like mad or like sad when you receive the Eucharist, but I was wondering if it just has to do with your sins or if it has to do with your emotions as well.
Okay, Indiana, good question. What it means to be in a state of grace means that we are in the state of sanctifying grace. We have sanctifying grace in our souls. And when Adam and Eve sinned, Adam and Eve were created with sanctifying grace in their souls. And when they sinned, they lost that. And in losing that, they could not produce that in their children. It was a gift from God, and when Adam and Eve lost it, they could not then give that to their future generations. So down through history, we are conceived without sanctifying grace in our souls. Sanctifying grace is that life of the soul that's necessary to live with God eternally. And since they lost that's why Jesus came. He came so that our sins could be forgiven and we could receive sanctifying grace in our souls. And we do that first through baptism. But we lose that sanctifying grace again when we commit a mortal sin. A mortal sin is a sin that's serious enough that it ruptures our friendship with God. And for us to be culpable of a mortal sin, we must know it's a mortal sin when we commit it. And we must freely choose to commit the sin. So if those three things are present, the gravity of the sin and the knowledge that this is a serious sin, and the freedom that we're choosing it with, we're committing a mortal sin, and we thereby lose the sanctifying grace in our souls. The way we get that back, the ordinary way, is through confession. We go to confession, we receive that sacrament, and our sins are forgiven again, and we have sanctifying grace back in our souls. So to be in a state of grace means that we have been baptized, and we have not committed a mortal sin since our baptism, or if we have committed a mortal sin since our baptism, we've been to confession to get that grace back. To follow up with your comment about the Eucharist, we never want to receive the Eucharist when we're not in the state of grace. This is teaching of the Church. In fact, to receive the Eucharist outside the state of grace is considered a sacrilege. It's another mortal sin if we know that and freely do it. So it's a sin of sacrilege to receive the Eucharist not in the state of grace. So we always want to go to confession if we are aware that we're in the state of mortal sin. And again, we cannot commit a mortal sin without knowing it. Now, the other things you mentioned, sadness, or say hurt feelings towards someone else, those don't always rise to the level of a mortal sin. I mean, sadness doesn't. Maybe anger in our heart might, but if we've not entertained those emotions in such a way that we've lost sanctifying grace, then we can still receive the Eucharist as long as we've remained in a state of grace. If you're not sure about that, that's a good question to talk to a spiritual director about. Do you have a spiritual director, Indiana? Do you have someone you talk to about the state of your own life and your own spiritual life? A priest, or it could be a lay person?
I guess my
priest. If you don't,
yeah.
Your priest? Okay, well, a lot of people there are spiritual directors, and you can contact your parish and have just, regular meetings with your spiritual director, meet from time to time and talk about what's going on in your spiritual life, and that person can help direct you and help you with understanding, am I in a state of grace? Am I not? Do I need to go to confession? Is it okay to receive the Eucharist? Those kinds of things. But the bottom line is, if you're in a state of grace, you may receive the Eucharist, provided you're Catholic. If you're not in the state of grace, as St. Paul says, we don't want to, we need to examine our consciences, and we need to make sure that we approach the Eucharist worthily. If we're not approaching it worthily, in other words, in the state of grace, spiritually worthy, then we're committing the sin of sacrilege. Okay?
Indiana, that all makes sense?
Oh, that made all my sense, Sai. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm going to go to confession tomorrow. That's why I asked.
They have
wonderful.
They got Wednesday confession at your parish?
No, I had to make a meeting.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was going to say, I love those priests that hear confession midweek. But in Indiana, it was great talking with you. Thanks. I hope we'll speak again.
And of course, have a good one.
You
and
too.
Thank you for your answers.
Oh, thank you. That's like,
You're welcome. God bless you, Indiana.
Well, we do Catholic Answers. You do Catholic Questions, Jim. So I think she was referring to us.
Okay.
I mean, we love you and the work that you do, but
Well, I'm a guest here today, Cy. Come on.
oh yeah, that's true. All right, okay, I won't hog it all to myself. Paul in Denver, Colorado, listening on Alexa. Paul, thanks for calling. Go ahead with your question for Jim Blackburn.
Hi there, Cy, and thanks for teasing my Amazon Echo in the earlier hour when you answered a call from the guy in Virgin Island. You actually made it go silent for a few seconds. Thanks a lot.
Sorry. That's the first I've ever heard that had any effect on anyone's Alexa. And I kind of made my day, Paul. I know that's slightly evil on my part, but I'm kind of excited that it worked.
Hey, Jim, I have a question.
Yes.
I was listening to the news about this doctor who performed an abortion in Indiana. She's in a big trouble with the Attorney General and everything. And it was performed by a 10-year-old girl who was pregnant. And that was shocking to me. As a pro-life, how do I defend pro-life in that situation?
Yeah, that's a tough one, huh?
Well, what's the alternative, Paul?
Well,
I mean, if you're saying the alternative is to kill the baby, I mean, how do we defend that? It's never moral to kill an innocent human being in a situation like that. To intentionally kill the baby, that's just not the answer. There must be another answer. And in the situation of even when we have a 10-year-old girl. I mean, clearly she's mature enough physically to reproduce. So I think sometimes when we think of a 10-year-old girl, we might be thinking of someone prior to that age, or prior to the having that ability to reproduce. But in this case, the girl had apparently gone through at least enough of puberty to be capable of becoming pregnant, and be capable of carrying a child then, seemingly. I don't know the details on that, if this pregnancy somehow was going to be a terrible physical challenge for the girl, and therefore they thought the abortion was necessary, or if it was just because she was 10 years old. But whatever the arguments are or were, the answer is not to kill an innocent baby, to intentionally kill an innocent baby. It could be that this girl could have carried the baby to term, had the baby and put it up for adoption, or her parents could have helped her with the child from then on. I don't know, but I do know that it's an intrinsic evil is never the right answer. And abortion is an intrinsic evil.
Paul, does that help you?
It does, because my main thought was maybe she had a very tiny body or something. But you're right. I mean, it is evil just to kill the child. So I just wanted to see how I can defend that situation.
Well, it is horrible what happened to that girl. And
it is.
And it's just that if you propose a violent solution, how is that better than a nonviolent solution? Even though there's no way to get around a horrible, vicious injustice to that girl. Paul, I really enjoyed talking with you, and thanks for listening to us on the Alexa. We'll be right back with more. Oh, you know what? Before I go, I would like to give out the phone number, because every single line's open right now for open forum with Jim Blackburn, and that is unusual. That means I haven't given out the phone. Oh, we had all those phone problems. So we lost a bunch of calls. Oh, so this is your chance. 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. Jim Blackburn, our guest. It's open forum. We'd love to get your call. We'll take those calls right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hang on, Catholic Answers Live will return in a moment.
St. John Paul II stated that, for the disciple of Christ, evangelization is a duty, an obligation of love, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church states that evangelization is necessary for salvation.
So we know we're called, but how do we do it?
St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. To learn more, contact us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The most original and exclusive Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
More to Life is all about exploring what it means to live the Catholic difference in everything we do.
Our goal is to help people see that when they are connected to His grace, there is so much more to life.
More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchak. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Jim Blackburn, and we do have lines open. If you've got a question, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. I'm going to give you some of the... We dropped all those calls because we had that phone problem. And so Jesse in San Antonio, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio, had called to ask, is there a program I can order online about apologetics? Where can we go to get a good explanation about the Inquisition and the Crusades?
Okay, well, as far as the program, online program for apologetics, I mean, first thing you've got to mention, I think, is the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics, right, Cy?
Yes, and it has a class on the Inquisition, as a matter of fact.
There is one on the Inquisition as well.
Right.
So, I mean, that would be my recommendation, unless you have something else to add, Cy.
No, and I think we got one on the Galileo Fair as well. So all these, and then we've got the Crusades with Steve Weidenkopf. I don't know why I blanked on the great Steve Weidenkopf's name. Wonderful, wonderful historian. So I would definitely go to schoolofapologetics.com and check out all those courses. But a corresponding thing that I might mention is that pretty much every topic that's covered in one of the courses, there'll also be at least one book on it at shop.catholic.com. So there are places to go. And then for free stuff, you can always go to catholic.com and type in Crusades or Inquisition or Galileo. And then if you're like, but I need to talk to a person about this, go to catholicquestions.com.
Yes.
And a person will talk to you about it.
Absolutely. Great answer, Cy.
Thank you. Since you are an apologist, I'll just ask you this: how many millions of people were killed in the Inquisition? Like 20 million or 10 million?
Oh, I don't know the number. Do you, Cy?
No, but I know that. But I just know that people ask.
I know that it's been outrageously.
That's what I was doing. Exaggerating it, yeah.
Exaggerated.
Yeah, because people will say, like the Inquisition is this millions of people killed or something. And it's not. But there were people who died in the Inquisition. But if you could find 100 of them, I'd be impressed with you. Not millions of them.
And I think it's important to mention that these people didn't actually die at the hands of the Catholic Church. They died at the hands of the government, and there's a distinction I think that needs to be made there. And of course, as you mentioned, Cy, well, there's a good tract at Catholic Answers, Catholic.com on the Inquisition, which explains this. There's a good article in the Catholic Encyclopedia available at Catholic.com, and then Steve Weidenkopf and his books on the Crusades and the Inquisition provide a lot more details. But the Church itself, we can't necessarily hold the Church itself. We might be able to hold some people in the Church responsible.
Sure.
But the Church itself is holy. And
yeah.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. The number is 888-318-7884. I do have a lot of questions for Jim. I'm going to share those questions with him. But if you'd like to get on the line and ask your question, you're welcome. 888-318-7884. I'll just say to parents, if you got little ones listening, I'm going to ask Jim a quite mature question in about 15 seconds. So if you want to do something else, that's fine for a few minutes because I'd like to give you a little bit of warning. The number here is 888-318-7884. Jim Blackburn is our guest. And let me remind you again, if Catholic Answers has meant a lot to you and you want to share what it's meant to you, we're doing a kind of a cool thing for Giving Tuesday on Instagram. If you would like to participate in our Instagram Giving Tuesday thing, then what you do is you record a story-length video, something less than 15 seconds, saying why you love Catholic Answers, what Catholic Answers has meant to you, and then send us the video in the DMs. Slide into our DMs. Is that how they say it? A direct message? Is that right, or did I say it wrong? That's what I've heard. On or before Giving Tuesday, November 29th, and then watch for your testimony and others that we're going to share on Instagram. Jim, I said I was going to ask you a kind of a mature question, and I think it's a very good and important question. So I didn't want to just ignore it. But Santi was not able to stay on the phone with us because we had a little phone problem. But in Minnesota, was listening on to EWTN on channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio, and the question is very simple and direct: is it a mortal sin for a Catholic married couple to use the withdrawal method?
Okay. It's a grave sin, certainly, because to frustrate the conjugal act in order to try to prevent pregnancy is immoral of itself. And if the couple does this knowing that it's grave matter and they're freely choosing to do it, even though they know it's contrary to God's law, then yes, it would be a mortal sin for them to use that method. Any method which frustrates the ordinary act, the conjugal act, is immoral. A married couple must always, their sexuality must always be ordered toward procreation. That doesn't mean it always has to be procreative, but they cannot themselves introduce something into the conjugal act to frustrate it. If they choose to engage in the conjugal act for a time only when the wife is infertile, this is what NFP tries to do. Those kinds of ways of avoiding pregnancy for a time when you have a good reason can be moral, but not a situation like the withdrawal method or the use of contraceptives and such.
I had to say, sometimes this is the one that people have the hardest time with about that, is that why is it okay to refrain from intercourse during infertile periods, but it's not okay to use other methods? And because I think it's hard for people to see, well, why is that different? So could you explain why that's different? Because the church does not say that you must just take a laissez-faire approach. You're not obligated to that. You can, in fact, no one is obligated by the church to have intercourse on any particular day at any particular time.
Yeah, that's right.
So why is that perfectly acceptable, but it's not acceptable, for example, to use the other methods that you described?
Yeah, we have to draw a distinction between the end, what is it that we're looking to accomplish here or not accomplish. We have to draw a distinction between that and the means to that end. There are moral means to getting pregnant. Rape is not a moral means to pregnancy. There are moral means to avoiding pregnancy. Abstaining from intercourse during the fertile time of the wife's cycle is a moral means to avoiding pregnancy. Frustrating the conjugal act in order to avoid pregnancy is not a moral means. Now, it's not a moral means because the only time sexual activity really is ever moral is between a husband and a wife in a completed conjugal act that must be ordered toward procreation. And that word ordered is very important. The act does not have to be procreative of itself, for example, during an infertile period, but it must still remain open to that. It must remain ordered toward that. If we're frustrating the order of the act itself, then we're we're bringing something in that's contrary to the morality of the act. So those are the distinctions to be made. It's really a matter of the means that are immoral. The end itself may be immoral or not. A married couple who wants to space the births of their children and have maybe financial reasons to do that, it's perfectly moral to attempt to avoid pregnancy for a time, to use the natural family planning method for that. But to introduce another means that is not moral, such as frustrating the act, that's never okay to do.
One of the things that I always wish we could do, but we don't always have time to do it, and we do have time to do it today, is to say how beautiful this teaching is, how it is not it can be a difficult teaching to follow, but it's not onerous, and it has wonderful effects in marriage. And among the effects, for men certainly, is being more in tune with the wife's body, understanding her cycle more, and understanding and what she goes through in the course of her cycle, and kind of learning a kind of restraint and patience that you might not within the context of marriage that you might not learn otherwise.
Yeah, I get over the years, people saying, "Oh, you Catholics have such a rigid view of sex. You think it's bad. You think it's dirty. It's only for one thing and one thing only." And so we must somehow think that it's bad and think that it's dirty. It's actually, if you understand Catholic theology behind it, it's just the opposite. We see the conjugal act as one of the most beautiful acts that we can engage in as human beings. It's a oneness shared between the husband and wife. That's just a beautiful show of love for one another. And we maybe then put that up on a pedestal a little bit, and it should be, because to engage in that outside of what it's intended for, that loving act between a husband and a wife, ordered towards procreation and the good of the spouses, is to use it outside of that is to abuse it. And all of these other things, masturbation, same-sex sexual activity, adultery, fornication, all of these kinds of things, they are the ones that really cheapen sex, cheapen intercourse, make it something that it's not. Really what they do is they seek to provide or receive enjoyment from it without any consequences, without the responsibility that goes along with it. But when a husband and wife engage in the conjugal act, being responsible and it's truly a loving act, open to procreation and the good of the spouses, the good of each other, the good of the marriage, it's actually a beautiful thing. We don't think it's dirty. We don't think it's somehow a bad thing. We see it as the beautiful act that it is that God created for us.
And I really do think it's a better deal for women because men come into a different relationship with their wife when they're respecting her body and not asking her to put chemicals in her body, not asking for other things, but respecting her body.
Not treating her as an object.
Yeah.
Treating her as his wife, his spouse.
Jim Blackburn, you're awful good at this. I'm really glad you were here.
I'm awful? Did you say?
I said you're awful good at this, Jim.
Oh.
But I also want to say again, congratulations. Today, second anniversary of the founding of CatholicQuestions.com. And you've been doing it every day since, and it's a magnificent service you do, and I hope we'll be able to keep supporting you in it and sharing it with other people, and that you'll just get to keep doing it for a long time.
Thanks so much, Si. God bless you. Thanks for having me on today.
CatholicQuestions.com is where you can go to ask Jim and his apologist friends questions directly. You can always find us at Catholic.com, and we'll see you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.